So we're going to look back through the lens of human design, obviously, because that's what we do, even
Mhm.
though we just also ramble a lot. But really looking at, especially I think since this has been really a year for you that I think you're really kind of understanding a lot more about
Mhm.
yourself and human design and how the system works. I mean, it is our second year of doing the podcast.
Mhm.
So it's going to be interesting that we can both look back. And then I'm also going to pose a lot of questions here for you, the listener, to consider. Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, your human design guide.
And I'm Haley on this journey with you to uncover the power of human design.
Together, we're here to explore how embracing your authentic self is the ultimate path to a life of more freedom and fulfillment.
Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Well, good morning, Haley. How you doing?
Morning, good.
There's a few more moments of morning left on this Sunday that we're
Yep.
recording.
Mhm.
And to all of you out there listening, welcome back, whatever day it is. Glad to have you here. We are officially in the holiday season, are we not?
Woo-hoo.
It is December. And
Mhm.
whew, I felt like it would never get here with all the freaking Black Friday sales and
Oh my
emails and
God.
Cyber Mondays. And did that not go on for like a month at
It was
least?
the entire month of November. It was
Yeah.
just Cyber Black Friday. It's like, where are the days where you would have to go to the actual store and get in a fight to get your dang deals?
And never do it. Would never do it. Never
No, we never
understood
did
it.
it. Presley and his family, they would go.
Really, they'd
Mainly, I
go
think
after
him and his cousins, yeah, they would
would
go.
they'd go after Thanksgiving? Would they
Mhm.
go like that night, like Thursday night, and get in line, or would they just get up super early? Do you
I
know?
don't know the specifics. I don't think they would be going right after Thanksgiving dinner,
Uh-huh.
but
Did
they
did they
they did it.
did they do it every year, or just like if there was good electronic
Maybe
sales?
a couple times. I don't I don't know all the
I'm asking you
specifics.
too many questions. You're like, I don't fucking know. It's just something people say in conversation. Well, no, I never did it because I hate
Mm,
crowds. I would never do
I
that.
know.
I remember several years ago being in New York City, and I can't remember who I was with now, but anyways, we came out of the hotel one day, and along the whole block of the hotel and the next block, and oh, because it was near Grand Central Station, I remember that.
Mm.
There's people just like lined up on the sidewalk and
They were cued?
camping out. They were cute, and I was just like,
Oh.
what is going on here? And finally, I just stopped, or I just asked somebody, like, what are you waiting
Mhm.
for? And it was like they're waiting for an iPhone drop.
Oh my god.
Yes. Yes. I was
What,
like,
iPhone 2?
now in that long ago. I don't remember which one it was, but I was just like, oh, I mean, it was cold because it
I
was,
would never do that.
no, never.
I saw a reel the other day that it was like Cyber Monday in 10 years ago, whatever. And it's like, I'm getting this new TV, this iPhone, blah, 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 like all these electronics. It's like, I'm saving $300. I'm getting all of this for like $60. And then it's like Cyber Monday today. It's like, save 40 cents with code you suck. Oh, thanks.
No doubt. I mean, I think we all, as consumers, shoppers, whatever, have become somewhat jaded by all that. Is it, especially the big retailers? You're like, are you really
Mhm.
offering me a discount? I mean,
Yeah.
is it worth it? I mean, I went
Mhm.
to Target yesterday. I remember Target used to be like a place of like whimsy and
Mhm.
fun, and oh, it just felt so good. Target in our neighborhood, I don't know if neighborhood's the right word. It's a
City? We
disaster
only have
zone.
one.
I mean, the quality of so many things has gone down, especially the
Mhm.
clothes. The quality has gone way down. And every time I go in there now, it's just like a bomb went off in there.
I know. Their clothes section can be so bad.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I
it's a
mean, it's just
disaster.
everything's unfolded and it's thrown everywhere. The shoe department, all the boxes open. I'm like, who are these people that are coming in here and
Menaces.
rampaging?
It's just a
And there was just too
disaster.
many. There was just too many people, and I was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta get out of here. And the other bad thing is because I am a late holiday shopper because I hold very firm to my like November is for Thanksgiving and my birthday. It's not for Christmas. Now that I want to go find things like maybe um some decorations that aren't fresh,
Mhm.
like not a fresh tree, but maybe I was looking for maybe like a little LED tree or something, and nothing. Everything's gone. It's like
I know.
the only thing that's left is wrapping paper. I'm like, oh
Just make
well.
a wrapping paper tree on your wall.
We might make just a light on the wall tree like we
You
had the
guys
one
did
year.
that before. It was cute.
Yeah, I also
Mhm.
have a green plant in my house, a corn plant. It's about 4 feet tall. I was looking at it the other day
Just
going,
decorate that.
we could maybe put that up on a little bench and
Put a little
wrap it.
lights on it. There you go. Yeah.
No trees were harmed.
I know. I feel like lately
Your
everything with what?
I was just gonna say your apartment, the video you sent me looks so cute. It's
Oh,
adorable.
I love decorating for Christmas. I love it so much. I
I
love
might
the
have to
lights
share
because it
that.
gets so cozy. Yes, share it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like Christmas nowadays is so like forced consumerism. Like everyone's like, "Oh, you got to get all this new stuff." And like I went to
Welcome,
Target.
welcome to adulthood.
I know. I went to Target a couple weeks ago and I was like, "Oh, this like cute stuff." But I was like, I don't need to just buy stuff like unpurposefully. Yeah. I'm trying to
Uh,
be more cognizant.
Non-mindful.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, that's great. No,
Cuz
that's
it's like I don't know.
well, it's true because this will lead us into what we're talking about today. We're going to be talking about reflecting on 2024 and maybe growth that's happened this year and
Mhm.
everything else. But that's part of the thing is that when you start taking that perspective, looking at things and actually like contemplating why or what this is about, you're like,
Mhm.
hmm. So, yeah, so it is December and it is a time as we get towards the end of the calendar year that we want to start, looking back on our year. I mean, what was all over Instagram this week or Facebook and our text threads? What was all over that?
Oh, Spotify Wrapped and how
Yeah.
crappy it was.
I know, because then I'll see reels about Spotify. You trying to tell your Spotify how you want to listen to something new and reshuffle it. It's like, oh, here's oh, this is that song you really love from 2 weeks ago. It's like, no,
You're
I
like,
want to
"No, I
listen
want
to the things
new."
I listen to. Oh, I think I know what you want. Oh, here, you listened to this song 40 times last week. You want to hear it again, right? Yeah, our Spotify raps in our family, that was funny. It was kind of all over the place. But
Hunter, Lexi, and Ian. No, you, Hunter, Lakeland, and Ian all
mhm.
had like almost the same. I was showing Presley your Wrapped, and he's like, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
who
do.
Remy Wolf is.
Remy Wolf is great. You'd like Remy Wolf. Based on your Spotify rap with basic white girl music.
It's in, you know what? Spotify oh my God.
AI?
Spotify AI made my playlist for me, my workout playlist, and it's very good.
Okay.
Take it up with Spotify.
I stand by what I said. I was looking at your at least it's not all Hamilton
They're
this
good
year.
for running. Yeah, it's not Hamilton.
One year it was just the soundtrack to Hamilton.
It was just Hamilton.
Yeah. To be fair, a lot of mine is podcasts, but you know,
Mhm.
um, no, Remy Wolf's really good. You'd like Remy Wolf. She's amazing. She can sing and she's very, very catchy. Anyway,
Okay.
uh anyways, wrapping up the year. And so we're gonna do that here. We're gonna look back through the lens of human design, obviously, because that's what we do, even
Mhm.
though we just also ramble a lot. But really looking at, especially I think since this has been really a year for you that I think you're really kind of understanding a lot more about
Mhm.
yourself and human design and how the system works. I mean, it is our second year of doing the podcast.
Mhm.
So it's going to be interesting that we can both look back. And then I'm also going to pose a lot of questions here for you, the listener, to consider. So if you want to try and take notes while we talk, you can do that. Or I have another suggestion. I recently switched my newsletter over to Substack, where I think I'm going to, with this episode, maybe put out another post that will have these questions in it. So if you want to head over to my Substack, which the link will be in the show notes, where you can subscribe for free, and over there, we're going to have, there's going to be the video of the podcast. There's going to be the players. And then also, you subscribe, you'll get straight to your inbox notification of when new episodes come out. And then also a little more in depth exploration of what the episode was about. Maybe some
Mhm.
pictures, maybe some videos now and then that you won't get just in the show notes or anything else. You'll have to be on the email list. And so I think I'll do that there for this episode, put these reflection questions up
Mhm.
there so that if you are just listening and you just want to start thinking about it, but then you want to go back and because I don't know about you, I'm not a note taker. Every time I hear a podcast episode, they're like, grab a pen and paper and write it down. I'm like, no, because usually I'm driving or I'm walking. So I'm not grabbing a pen and paper. I'm just like, I'll remember that. Never do.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so we're really looking this today because I'm going to do this in a couple parts, sort of.
Mm.
Haven't quite sussed it out yet, but today I want to think about looking back through the year, really according to your type, but also the openness in your chart, undefined areas in your chart, because when you look back, it's easier to sometimes glean the lessons, obviously,
Mhm.
because you've experienced it. That doesn't, that's a dumb way to say it. But if we're going to talk about the deconditioning process through human design, which is looking at the areas in your life, the beliefs, the behaviors that you have maybe been on autopilot your whole life, not really considering, or maybe you have, but you don't really know where it comes from or why it continues to happen, this getting yourself in certain situations. This is the conditioning that we've picked up throughout our lifetimes.
Mhm.
And big part of human design is deconditioning. When the original transmission from Raw, they said deconditioning is a 7-year process to begin.
Mhm.
And they always, you see my face. Ugh.
Yes.
There's some truth to that, I believe, because
Mhm.
it does take time to dismantle
Mhm.
things. But also, I think we have moved into more of this quantum reality and quantum possibility where we are learning ways to make these leaps forward as far as working with your nervous system and all this other stuff, ways that you can actually kind of hack through some of that and maybe jump forward. But
Mhm.
it's ongoing. Conditioning is ongoing. You're always going to be experiencing something outside of yourself because that's the main discussion around your definition and the defined and undefined centers is especially in the undefined. Yes, you pick up a lot of
Mhm.
input from your
Yep.
environment. And when you're not aware of it, it can create a lot of non self behaviors.
Mhm.
When you are aware of it, it can still create non self behaviors,
Right.
but you pick up on it a little bit
Mhm.
faster and you can adjust and you
Yeah.
can,
You can get out of it.
yeah. And so, but what I wanted to look at first is talking about your type because no matter what your definition is, the one of the main tenets of human design is if you just live according to your type, everything else just kind of falls into place,
Mhm.
right? Sounds easy.
Sounds so easy. You're like,
And
"Oh, okay."
it's like the Course of Miracles always says, or Marianne would always say, it's not, and this comes from the Course of Miracles, it isn't necessarily difficult, it's just different.
Mm.
It can be done. You're just not used to doing it. So it takes some adjustment, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I can attest to that. Is difficult. But
Yeah.
and it's a lifelong practice, I think. But it's there to show us the living according to type and strategy as a what's the word? As a
Starting point.
cognitive process, like being aware that you like effort, not
Mhm.
effort, but intention is there to really guide you into understanding what it feels like in your body, like when you're in alignment and when you're not, like in your decision making process, how to find that inner alignment by giving
Mhm.
you these guidelines of how to act by your type and your authority, then it becomes a more natural process for you so that eventually you don't really necessarily have to say, am I responding?
Mhm.
Am
Mhm.
I doing this? You just tend to understand how it feels better or how it
Mhm.
feels more in alignment. But until you get there, like I said, you can still go off center all the time because life's always moving and changing.
Mhm.
So I thought we've got all these types, but we'll start with ours because we can have a little bit of feedback here
Uh-huh.
and kind of guide the way a little bit. And I'll be honest, as I was contemplating these questions,
Mhm.
I had to go back in my Google Photos and see what happened this year. I'm terrible at journaling. I may journal like once a fortnight.
Ooh.
No, I don't. I don't even have a regular way of doing it. I always have the intention of journaling. I'm
Mhm.
like, I should really be noting this stuff or making note of it. But usually, when I feel compelled to quote unquote journal, it's
Mhm.
because there is some thought loop or phrase or just persistent thing that just keeps looping in my head and I have to and it's usually the first line that I write down when I journal because I'm like I just gotta
Mhm.
figure out what the
Get
frick
it
this
out.
is about. Yeah. And it's usually never in a good space. I'm never like, I feel amazing. I feel amazing. I feel amazing. No, it's usually like,
Oh.
I'm so frustrated.
Why?
Why? Yeah. So, so for generators, since I am a
Mhm.
generator, obviously, if you're going to reflect on your year by your type, first thing you're going to look at is what kind of experiences or which experiences, if you can pinpoint them, that you had this year really felt satisfying, felt good to
Mhm.
you. And how did they come about? Like, was it in response to something, your strategy?
Mhm.
Like, was there certain projects you were involved in, or maybe people you met, or experiences you had that literally came to you from outside of yourself and you responded
Mhm.
yes to it, right? So, what felt really good for you this year? And I will say, as I look back at my Google Photos, I said, oh, yeah, I was so excited. I had a lot of things that didn't feel great this year, but started the year in Colorado with you guys,
Mhm. Yeah.
which was an invitation or a response to an invitation.
Mhm.
The projector invited us. We decided to go. And that was beautiful starting the new year up there
Mhm.
in the mountains and all that. It's funny how quickly I can forget everything that happened in a year.
I
Um,
mean, to be fair, it is like 365 days in a year, so that's a
yeah,
lot to happen.
yeah. It all gets jumbled up in there. But and so when I'm thinking about what were the really satisfying things this year, they all involved going somewhere.
Mhm.
I was asked to go somewhere. Going to Colorado. I went in February to see my dad hadn't been back to Columbus where I grew up for a while, I
Mhm.
think. I don't think I've been there since COVID. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it had been like 2019 was the last time I was up there. And Richard, your dad and I went up there. And that was fun for a bit. It was fun when we got out of that. No, I shouldn't say that because it was for my dad's 85th birthday
Mhm.
and I was happy to be there. But,
Family can be a lot.
yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. It was good. Got to see some snow.
Mhm.
It was really cold. But, kind of got to uh not reminisce, but just kind of it's always strange going back where I grew up, where I spent 18
It's a lot
years.
of nostalgia.
It is. It's weird because things are familiar but totally unfamiliar because I
Mm-hmm.
haven't lived there in 35 years or something like that. So it's been a while. And then we had the wedding in June with Hunter and
Mm-hmm.
Lexi. That was a great time. So a lot of my highlights this year have been involved just going somewhere, which
Yeah.
is one of my favorite things to do is to like
Mm-hmm.
get out and go somewhere. So, generators experiences did you have? Did they align with your strategy of responding? Another question for generators: in what ways did following your sacral response lead to maybe some opportunities or unexpected opportunities? Like maybe you took on a new role at work and really reflecting on how tuning into that sacral response shaped what the outcome was, good or bad. Did you have a yes to it? And
Mm-hmm.
was it something good that happened? And like I said, this is conditioning, deconditioning. It's all ongoing, and I I feel like 2024 for me is kind of slow, and I don't know if that's the right word because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of things I was responding to, so I don't know if I'm still just kind of finding my way back from the last couple years of doing work that I didn't really enjoy doing, didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to be doing. Of course, I was also sick at the beginning of the year for like weeks, had pneumonia. It's another good indicator that maybe I was needing to retreat a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then as I was looking back through my photos, like I said, I was like, oh yeah, early in the year is when I really started um respond. I threw a response, something outside of myself, something I responded to was learning more about the tarot and
Mm-hmm.
using that more and starting to develop a more of a connection, not only to the cards, but also like the connection to my own intuition and everything that
Mm-hmm.
came from recommendation from someone else and digging into it. And so um that really deepened. And I would also say another thing that I like responding to is how I find my podcast guests is sometimes I don't know them at all, but I will see a post or I'll see something about them. And I literally, the sacral's like, yes, because there are in the podcasting world, there's lots of collaborations, there's lots of people looking to be guests, finding guests, all this other
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And I can go through a bunch of them and be like totally flat. But the people
Mm-hmm.
that the handful I've had on so far has definitely been a yes, like
Mm-hmm.
super excited, especially the one that's coming up next month. I'm super excited
Mm-hmm.
about.
That was fun.
We have a interview with a new friend next coming up in January, which was great. But so yeah, I think those are sacral responses. And yeah, I don't know. It's I feel like I've been kind of in isolation a lot this year,
Mm-hmm.
but I know I've been building a lot of things this year too. So I've been doing a
Yeah.
lot of things behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And
It also like it sounds how we talk about generator has that the plateau and then the wrap. Like it sounds like your year overall was kind of like in that
it's kind of
plateau building kind of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, and the plateau is the space where you like kind of reevaluate if you're committed or if,
Mm-hmm.
because the plateau space like is gathering your energy. Yeah, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something that you're, really interested and committed to, then it will keep going. And it did that in many ways
Mm-hmm.
this year. Um and on that subject or on that example also looking at your year for generators, where were the moments that you did feel stuck or
Mm-hmm.
frustrated? What
Mm-hmm.
did you learn from those experiences? And I think this year was coming off of me learning from a lot of those stuck and frustrated places.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've hit that place many times this year as well of feeling just kind of stuck in the sense of what's the next path forward. And so I think I as a line one, I may be isolating a little too much is part of the problem and getting
Mhm.
back out in the world. But that's something I'm still feeling out. And I have also really tapped in. This is the next question, how to better recognize the difference between like actually being like satisfied or
Mhm.
settling for what feels good enough. Because as generators, I think a lot of us spend time in good enough thinking that that's satisfaction, but it's not. It's just good enough. It's like, well,
Mhm.
it's not terrible. It's okay. I can do this. I shouldn't really expect more, you know,
Mhm.
and knowing what really feels good. And so that is something that is really kind of challenging in the sense that when you're used to so, especially 54, I had my birthday, I'm 54, of generally feeling good enough.
Mhm.
Um, I could say I'm content in a lot of ways, but there's also a lot of ways where I'm not like feeling the real juice, which I think is
Mhm.
the satisfying part of it. I am satisfied and proud of myself of a lot of things that I've accomplished this year, but still I know that there's more that I could be reaching for or
Mhm.
allowing in actually, and it's just not there yet. So,
Mhm.
anyways, that's some questions for generators. So it's your turn next.
Yee.
My little projector. So, for
Mhm.
projectors, first thing to ask yourself is pretty clear. What kind of invitations or recognitions stood out to you this year? Were there any
Mhm.
for you? Like maybe if you were invited to join or lead something,
Mhm.
or what do you have?
So I have like an example from work
Hmm.
that I have these like five five projects I think that have this really complex huge Excel file that we use to draft the invoices,
Hmm.
and there's always more funding that's being added in these different buckets and stuff. So it's very complicated, and it was that this other guy, he would put all of the information in and go through and try to do the formulas, update the formulas as best as he could. And it would take like probably 2 weeks for him to get the file to me
Hmm.
at like the start of a new month. And he kind of came to me one time. He's like, "Do you like have any suggestions on how to make this better? Like how to make this go quicker and everything?" I was like, if you can just put in like the actual dollar values so I know where to start from, like I can take it. I can fix all the formulas. I can make sure it all checks out and is the correct amount. It's like I can do that way quicker. I didn't say that to him, but I was like, I can do it, I think, a little bit more proficiently than you can. I was like, I am good with the Excel. And he's like, okay, perfect. And so like he'll send it to me and I can get it turned around in like I can get all of them turned around in about a week compared to
Hmm.
like 2 weeks. But it was like he came to me and he's like, "What do you think? What can we do?" And I was like, "I got you."
So, so in that instance, you had been like, you knew it could be better, but you
Hmm.
resisted. Like,
I
did
didn't.
you
I didn't force it.
did you consciously do that, or were you just kind of like accepting how it was? And
I was just kind of going with it.
hmm, yeah,
Like I would like have to remind him on things like we can only submit one invoice a month, so like we gotta kind of get this
hmm.
better. Like, can you send me these? And finally, he's like, "I need help." I
Like
was
I
like, "I
know you
got you."
do. I know you do. I feel like patting him on the head. I
Yeah.
got you. It's okay. It's about time you recognized. That's a
Yeah.
good. And so when he did, did it make you feel good that you knew you could do it and you got it done
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
and you
'Cause
helped? Yeah.
it's it's complicated, but it is also very satisfying to do them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. So I know that this next question is one that you've definitely been tuning into,
Mhm,
which
mhm,
is, how did you, as a projector, honor your need for, let's say, rest? Not like you guys are like needing rest, but
mhm,
not always being in that sacral energy, but understanding that you can't always go, go, go for extended periods of time.
mhm.
So, how did you honor your need for maybe some rejuvenation and rest this year? Do you know?
I mean, I really got into my crocheting.
Yeah. Now, did you feel like you had to schedule any downtime, or do you ever felt like you
Um,
overextended yourself this year?
I wouldn't say like I feel the need like I have to like I'm pushing myself so much that I have to like schedule on my downtime because I like my downtime. So like I think I do that kind of unconsciously, consciously, however you kind of want to look at it. Like if I'm like, no, I want to go just watch TV today, or I want to like
Mm-hmm.
do my crafts, like I'm gonna do that. You do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't think I can really pinpoint a point where I over exerted myself this
Mm-hmm.
year, which is good. I mean, we kind of talked about it in one of the past episodes where I like did honor it when I was supposed to do a race and
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling great and I knew that if I did that race, then I would I would wreck myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, learning about, because another question is learning about what did you learn and how did you learn about setting boundaries
Mhm.
and conserving your energy for things that are actually more meaningful to you instead of just like a lot of projectors unknowingly just try to, you guys can have a lot more energy than those around it because you
Mhm.
are amplifying that sacral
Mhm.
energy of recognizing the difference there, which we've talked about some of what feels like a pressure to do and to like
Mhm.
be active. And so like I said, some of the things that reflecting on were there opportunity or times when you maybe declined invitations because, like you just said, you knew that this wouldn't be helpful or
Mhm.
helpful, wouldn't be nurturing to
Beneficial,
your
yeah.
beneficial to your energy. And so I mean, that's what I think. When I reflect or looking at these questions, thinking about how you are able to kind of really move into your projectorness in that way of your life might not always be this way. You know,
Mhm.
it may get busier as you get older. So it's good that you're going to have this foundation now of knowing like when you want to act, when you don't, and like recognizing that it's okay to not feel like you have to do all the things and
Mhm.
just because the people around you are. And I think that's probably the hardest thing for a lot of us generators and
Yeah.
projectors is the pressure we feel to initiate things because we can't.
Mhm.
Yeah, or I mean we can, just doesn't always work out the
Doesn't
best
go very
or
well.
isn't as exciting or as
Mhm.
satisfying or successful as we'd like it to be.
Yeah.
So, um, were there any areas where you felt this year unseen or undervalued? And if so, how did you handle those situations? Did you have any?
There was one kind of at work, and I think it was this year. It was either this year or towards the end of last year. I can't remember
Mm-hmm.
the timing exactly, but for work they were trying to move some of my projects over to some of the projects that they thought could go over to Krakow, which is where we have like another accounting hub.
Mm-hmm.
And I originally had said that like this group of projects could go over, like I didn't know of any restriction that they couldn't. But then I found out afterwards that like the the client contract requires a US citizen, like you have to be a US citizen to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like kept voicing that to management. I was like, I know I said it before, but like come to my attention that this cannot go over. Like it's not possible for this to go over. Like it cannot. Like and it was between that one was one project set, and then at the same time, I had another project set that is mainly in Hawaii and Guam, and they were gonna move that to Krakow as well, which would have been like at least a day time
Yeah.
difference trying to like
Yeah.
invoice, work with the project team. Like it wouldn't have worked. So I was like voicing that concern too. And I kept saying it to management. I was like, I don't like I have to say this. I have to get it off my chest. Like these shouldn't go over. Like they really should not go over. And like they weren't hearing it and just I never really I think changed my communication of it. I just kind of held firm in it and kept voicing my concerns with it and like I just kept saying like this doesn't can't go. And eventually they came around and were like, yeah, these can't go. And I was like, yes, I've been saying that.
I'm sure you, I'm sure.
Oh, of course, in the most polite way possible.
Yeah, you're like, but did you feel that knowing about your design helped you any in that situation about maybe not taking it personally, or you're certainly frustrated by it, but like,
Mhm,
can you imagine what it had felt like if you, before you knew that, okay, kind of have to be
mhm,
recognized for them to hear me? Yes, I'm going to say this, but does it feel different knowing that even though they're not hearing you, it's like not necessarily because you don't hold
mhm.
value in what you're saying, it's just like it's them.
Yeah.
They're
It did, because like, as over the course of that, I kind of got into the mentality of like, "Well, I've told you, so you're gonna fuck around and find out." Like, I just kind of like I was like, I voiced my thoughts on this and kind of like washed my hands, and I was like, "What's gonna happen is gonna happen." But like, I've made my peace and I've said what I need to say.
hmm Yeah. So so they just weren't hearing you. They just like it wasn't like a major thing. They just weren't ready to hear it.
Yeah, because what they were trying to do is they're just trying to move projects off of my plate so I can take on other work that has to be in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like they weren't they weren't seeing kind of the more details of it. They were just seeing the big picture of the list of projects that they were trying to move over. And it's
Well,
like they
you
don't know the
got those
details of it. And
details.
I was like, it's like, I'm telling you,
I have a
this makes
thing
the most
for
sense.
seeing the whole project. Just saying. Well, good. Maybe they'll listen to you now in the future. The next time. Well, that's interesting. So I would say that observing you as I know you,
Mhm,
um, I certainly am appreciative and proud of the way that you are kind of owning that about yourself and not feeling pressured to be something that you're not, which is quite an accomplishment at your age.
mhm.
Kudos, I
Oh,
must say,
thanks.
the power of human design,
Mhm,
allowing you to be comfortable with yourself. So that's really great. So we may have to make this into 2 episodes. It's kind of a,
mhm.
but want to move on to the other types that are listening. So in the same vein, of course, we don't have the experience here, but we will certainly pose the questions. Some things for you to reflect on. For manifestors, you know that your strategy is to inform those around you of what it is that you feel compelled to do. And I know that you don't always know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen, but there's this internal, nonverbal creative flow that manifestors have that when they feel compelled to act, they want to act, but they can get a lot of resistance from those around them because they haven't informed them. So, when you are, as a manifester, looking back on your year, were there any new initiatives or projects that you started this year? Anything new that you entered into? How did that impact yourself, your life, and those around you? What were some of the things you got off the ground? What did your creative flow, where did it direct you this year? Was it something new at work, or did you use your strategy of informing others? Was it a little bit easier to get off the ground or implement because you managed to let people know kind of like what you were thinking? I have found quite a few manifestors in my orbit as far as clients or friends or
Mhm,
whatever. And it is interesting to me that the way they do kind of shift a lot, or they're like, I like the way they're almost the ones that are embodying and really feeling it, like
mhm,
ones that know they're manifestors, the way they're kind of unapologetic about how they, well, I'm doing this now. I want
mhm,
to do this. I've been thinking about this, or I've been compelled to move in this direction. So this is what I'm going to do. And, and I've watched how the people who work with them or follow them are just like, well, that makes sense and that's great. And that inspires me too. I see it all the time. One person in particular that I know that I'm like really inspired by the way she just like, you know what? Now I want to do this for the next, who knows how long I'm going to do it. This is what I feel like doing.
Mhm.
It's like, there's no judgment there. It's like, that's really cool.
You're like,
See
"Oh, yeah, that makes
what
sense."
happens next. So, looking back at your year as a manifester, were you initiating after informing people before actually getting into action? Were you letting the people know around you how that was going
Mhm.
to occur, how you wanted it to occur? Reflect on maybe differences as a manifester now, knowing this. Look back on some of your past experiences as far as maybe planning things or how you maybe in the past just kind of went your own way and then would meet resistance from people that don't like your ideas or they are kind of questioning you on
Mhm.
the way you plan things or how you did things, like just real too many questions and asking blah, right?
Mhm.
So if you were using and implementing your strategy this year, did things go smoother? Just really kind of take a look at that and see if that's true.
Mhm.
And if not, well, were you actually letting people know what was happening? Because I think it takes effort for a manifester to do that because they are
Yeah.
in this nonverbal creative flow. So they don't really have words for it when it's formulating. And I imagine by the time they want to get into action, it's almost like feels too far gone.
Mhm.
It's like trying to like catch up.
Mhm.
So I think for a manifestor, their strategy is one of the more difficult ones because it's like you really have to cultivate that witness awareness of how you are interacting and behaving with those around you because you can just kind of do your own thing and go
Mhm.
your own way and to have to like take maybe a beat and see if this is going somewhere and you have to let someone know. I think it can be more challenging than just waiting for someone to respond to.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
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 Yeah. So, again, on that note, where did you feel any resistance? How did you get around it? Did you
Mhm.
realize you maybe weren't informing? Um, and also, as a manifester, because you are a non sacral being, you do not have a defined sacral center. Were you more cognizant this year, maybe, of prioritizing rest and downtime while pursuing these urges you might have? Because
Mhm.
the thing for a manifestor, even though you can get into action and go, you aren't designed to always carry it across the finish line or to actually do the hard
Mhm.
work or the groundwork. Remember, you're an initiator. You're to get things into action. But if you weren't aware of that, you're probably trying to still push things over the
Mhm.
finish line yourself and burning out. And then what happens a lot of times is you can kind of flatline because things aren't going to, it's almost like the universe or the muse or whatever recognizes that you need some
Mhm.
rest.
It's like
And
you need a moment.
yeah,
Well, hold on.
your creative flow can kind of get stunted or shut
Mhm.
down. So, did you experience any burnout this year? What happened? Where were you pushing? Were you initiating too much? Just kind of reflecting on your energy levels throughout the year and notice if there were any of those times and how you might course correct and change that in the future.
Mhm.
So, moving on now to our manifesting generators. Of course, it's kind of going to be a blend of what we talked about
Mhm.
with manifestors and generators. But really, for manifesting generators, of course, there is the initiating everything. But were you trying to get into action too fast? Were you waiting to respond to things, or were you just merely trying to initiate things?
Mhm.
Because that's the main challenge for a manifesting generator is just because you can get into action, skipping the part where you respond to something and you
Mhm.
just feel like, because especially if you feel stressed about certain things like finances or your work or whatever, there's this urge to want to just do something, even for
Mhm.
generators. But generator doesn't get into action that quickly, but the manifesting generator can be all over the place. And it can be, even though they are designed to have a lot of energy and lots of projects and doing lots of things, it's their effectiveness in those things are going to be greater if they're responding to something. It's going to
Mhm.
be a good use of their energy, right?
Mhm.
Um, Otherwise, they can just feel rather frustrated, maybe a little scattered because they're kind of chasing every little thing or thinking that they should be doing X, Y, and
Mhm.
Z. But are you using that sacral response? Especially, we didn't talk about authority, but especially for the manifestor type, if they're a emotional authority, of having to actually slow it down a little bit can be really
Mhm.
challenging.
Mhm.
Um, or you may be juggling lots of projects. Were you responding to the right opportunities? Made you feel like your energy was a little bit more effective and less scattered? Because you can do lots of different things, but if you're responding to them in the correct way, it's going to feel a lot more satisfying. You're going to be a lot more effective instead of just like squirrel, just all over the place. Like, why are
Yeah.
you doing the things you're
Mhm.
doing? Is something to look at. And one thing that manifesting generators are really good at is having the ability to pivot, to change directions. Did you experience that this year? Did it serve you? Was there maybe one direction you were going and you responded to something else and it got you in another direction? Did it serve you, your ability to just multitask and change, shift gears, do things like that?
Mhm.
So, did you change directions this year? And also, were there things that you actually said no to this year? Did you just kind of keep saying yes moving forward because you can get a lot
Mhm.
done and blah, blah, blah? Or were there things that you actually honored that sacral response and said, no, this is not for me? Because, not being a manifesting generator, I'm not really sure. I kind of observe your dad as the
Mhm.
manifesting generator in the house. And he definitely pivots. He definitely goes in different directions. He's like got a
Yeah.
couple different
Even throughout his day.
personalities. Yeah. And but I think, and he's not cognizant of human design.
Mhm.
He's not. So I'm just, it's like watching an experiment. I'm just seeing what happens. I try to gently guide and suggest,
Mhm.
but I try to encourage where I see his energy being better used, in the
Mhm.
sense that I can see the satisfaction he might derive from, say, the work that he does that is his salary,
Mhm.
and the work that he does, which is his side hustle or off season work, or
Mhm.
even creative work that he doesn't recognize as, um, it's just something
Valuable.
fun for him to do. He's in that space of like, yeah, I like doing this, like woodworking or
Mhm.
whatever. But you can't make a job out of that. You can't do anything with that. And I'm just like, well, we could see, but we are proud of him for he has, I mean, he can make things work. Like he's got his side hustle in the
Mhm.
off season, his little traveling oyster code catering business, and building that.
Yeah.
And
He was telling me about how he added on his crab leg and shrimp bundle or whatever.
well, what's interesting is we're finding and initiating and responding to things is that he may be fine because manifesting generator is more efficient, faster way of doing
Mhm.
things, right? He's kind of getting a lot more interested in just doing the pine sap potatoes that he does.
Mhm.
Like he did a different. He's finding that we don't quite get it either. It's like it's a novelty. It's like a
Yeah.
potato cooked in pine sap, but like he did the medieval
Mhm.
festival. It was a big hit, like everywhere, because it's a part of his traveling oyster co thing. He
Mhm.
brings his witch's pot full of pine sap, and
It's the legit cauldron.
yeah, and you cook whole potatoes in there. It's a old way of doing things that has its roots here in Horry County, and people are fascinated by it, and they're good potatoes, but it's just a potato.
It's a great potato, but
It's
it is
like,
just a potato.
but I said to him the other day, I'm like, you could just be in doing potatoes. He's like, I'm thinking about it. It's
And
like,
you know what? Like that would be so much easier for you guys to do out here than like oysters because I mean Colorado, we're in the middle of like
right.
the country.
Yeah, yeah. No, I did with him the other day, the Swamp Fest the other day. It was the beginning of November. And we were just doing, as far as it was by donations for the
Mhm.
environmental center that we are doing. And it was just like from 10 to 3, it was nonstop. People just come. People came back for like 2 and 3 potato. I'm like, you're back for another potato. I was like, oh, it was really good. And they were just making donations. People said, oh my god, we come every year because we want to get these potatoes. Okay, but these are just ways. Is fascinating to watch how things work for him. Sometimes when he
Mhm.
does respond and he's not trying to force things, it definitely he can get a lot done for sure,
Mhm.
and he does. Um, and I don't know. He has the energy level of, I don't know, 20 people sometimes when he's really
I mean,
engaged.
I always have this image of when you guys were moving us in here, and
Hmm.
he's like, he does that like hand slap leg jolt thing where he's
What?
like trying to.
Hand slap leg jolt.
It's like
What?
when it's I can like recognize it as that's when he's like got too much energy because we didn't know what we were gonna do. Like we were kind of trying to figure out like moving boxes and what we're unpacking and all of this. And he's like he like claps his hand. He like he does almost does like a mild skip where he like it's him
Oh,
getting into action.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, you know it. You know it.
Exactly what you mean. It's like, they gave me the green light. Let's go.
Yeah.
When you said like a little skip, you
Yeah, you can see it.
go. I think one of these days where we, on this Substack, we have ideas of like what we can offer for like a subscription tier. We're just gonna have to introduce everybody to your dad, I think.
We should. We
We
just
should
have like a one episode a month where we just have him on.
bring in these people that we're talking about all the time. They don't necessarily want to be out in the world of the internet, but maybe for a select few, I think it'd be interesting. Especially they would just kind of look at us and be like, "What are you talking about?" Anyways,
Yeah.
family member of the month. Okay, so manifesting generators, I think we kind of covered that. Like I said, Haley and I can get off on tangents. So check it out over on Substack. You'll have a list of all these questions that might be a little bit easier for you to contemplate for yourself. Lastly, for reflectors, environment's very important to reflectors because they have all open, undefined centers. There's no defined centers, no channels in a reflector's chart. So they are very much tied to the environment. They're here to really reflect what's happening in the environment, what's healthy, what maybe needs to be shifted or changed. That's what they do. They reflect. And so, thinking about your year, what environments were you in this year? What was your experience in those environments? How did they affect your well being? Looking at your home, the workplace, social groups, were they nurturing or draining to you?
Mhm.
Um, what insights did you gain from observing the cycles of the moon? Are you tracking the moon? Are you tracking how it moves through your chart? And have you started to notice maybe certain patterns in the way you feel and the way that you are able to make decisions, those type of things? Have you been waiting for clarity over that lunar cycle? Did you, and remember, those are the big things in life, but
Mhm.
did you feel compelled to rush those decisions? If you did, what happened? Um, what changes did you maybe make in your life to kind of find healthier environments for yourself? Did you feel the need to extract yourself from a certain environment, a city, a job, or whatever? Did it bring you greater peace? How did you come to that process? It's a
Mhm.
long, long process for a reflector,
Mhm.
and really through honoring your own energy and the way you're designed, were you able to see this year, working with your type, how you can really show the energy, the environment, the people around you? Were you able to help guide or support others through stepping into that? Were you able to see how,
Mhm.
when you are feeling like healthy and secure and balanced, how that affects those around you? So, just some things for the reflector to consider, especially in your relationships, how your environment can affect your relationships, and yeah, so some things to consider. And so that also leads me to, before I wrap up this, because yeah, we're definitely going to, I think stick with the type reflections for today, and
Mhm.
we'll bring it back some more reflections next time with the undefined centers
Mhm.
because there's a lot to dig into there. And as I said, and then we'll wrap up the month with okay, what do we want to do with all this information going forward, and how are we going to use what we maybe gleaned this year, but also how do we want to move into 2025? Now, we
Mhm.
don't want to do any kind of what you call it resolutions. We're not doing that.
Mhm.
This is just intentions kind of thing because
Mhm.
also human design year resets in January, not in December. Okay. All right. So
Mhm.
so since we're just gonna stick a pin in it, put a pin in it for types. So if we're gonna look back at the year, question for all types, which I think we've kind of touched on here, but were you embodying your strategy this year? Were you accidentally doing it? Were you intentionally
Mhm.
trying to do it? How did it feel? What were your quote unquote results? How did it have an impact on your decisions? Also, when you're looking at strategy, also factor into that your authority, especially if you're an emotional authority. Did you work with that this year to see that when you took more time to kind of
Mhm.
evaluate how you were feeling, finding that clarity over time, which has been a big one for me over the last couple years, has probably made the most difference as far as because I have sacral, splenic, and solar plexus definition. So
Mhm.
I can get lots of signals to be like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
And then
yeah."
and you have like a 2 to 1 like fight
Impulse.
of yeah, like an immediate response.
Yeah, because I
But
can
your biggest authority is your solar
your emotional
plexus.
part. Yeah, and so I can get distracted all the time. And I used to have a lot more stuff than I needed. I was overcommitted. I also
Mhm.
have the channel 2946 of like, well, gate 29, I think I have that twice, which is that commitment of saying yes, 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 yes,
Mhm.
yes, let's do it.
Mhm.
Um, I've slowed that process down and it's been challenging, especially if I'm not out in the world and maybe I'm just here in my office and I'm on the internet and opportunities show up or things show up and I'm like, oh, yeah, I want to do that. And I'm like, no, I do want to do that. Do I want to do that? I want to do that. Taking more time before I
Mhm.
invest in anything has been very helpful. And so I think for the emotional authorities, that is a really big thing to experiment and question and see if you were slowing yourself down this year, revisiting your decisions, not feeling that you had to answer people right away. Can I get back to you? That's a big one. But for me, that was probably one of the biggest learning lessons is to slow down. And then likewise, if you're not um, emotionally defined, are you actually trusting those in the moment decisions, maybe if you're sacral or splenic, where did that lead you? Did you work with, if you are the ego authority or a projected authority, in the sense that were you taking the time to not keep the decision making process all to yourself? Did you
Mhm.
find someone that could, like the mental projectors, people that you could
Your sounding
rely
board.
on? Yeah. Did you find a sounding board this year? Same for the reflectors. Did you find people that will just listen to you and
Mhm.
help you suss it out? If you haven't, why not? Go find you somebody. It'll do wonders for you. So, really reflecting on those things. And when you consciously try to follow your strategy, your authority, how did you feel about this? And they might not have all worked out, but how did you
Mhm.
feel about the outcomes? And did you have a greater sense of clarity? Did you meet more resistance? Those kind of things.
Mhm.
And that's the overall thing is what's any big breakthroughs you had this year in understanding your human design type or your authority
Mhm.
specifically. Um, I think for me, I am understanding more and more this connection between my activity and the way I feel in the sense that, because I always felt like, well, they talk generators, work, work, work. You guys want to work. You love to work. Well, I
Mhm.
was like, I don't really want to
I don't
because
love to work.
I don't love to work because I was never really doing things that I love
Mhm.
doing. And when I resigned from the flower shop last year, it was this time around this time last year, I was so ready. I was beyond ready. I was burnt
Mm.
out. And I could feel it in my body. And now that I'm not, but that was a more active job, at least a couple hours a day up on my feet, moving around,
Mhm.
whatever, which I don't do that as much now because I'm more like I'm here on the computer
Mhm.
desk, either making content or meeting with people, all these things. I have more of an urge now that I have to get up and move. Like I can feel it in my body so much more
Mhm.
that it actually helps like clear my mind and everything to actually get outside and move.
Mhm.
And I'm starting to notice that if I have to go for a walk, I have to do these things throughout the day, or yeah, I'm less restful. My body feels it more, which
Mm.
in general, people you should move around.
Yeah.
Um, but I can get so focused on where I am, I have to get up, and move around. But I
Mhm.
am like, it makes it a different approach as far as movement and exercise when I'm thinking about, oh, this is going to improve my brain function. This is going to help me get
Mhm.
more done
Mhm.
by taking the break and doing something like that is a good and focus for me. Uh, I also, even though I am not completely alcohol free, I've stopped just, I don't drink at home now. I'm sure when you're here at Christmas, there will be some wine shared because I am a social drinker. So, but it's been interesting to watch the changes day to day or like how you sleep, all these things. Like, I feel like this year I've gotten way more in touch with like how my physical body is feeling and what I can do to support that beyond just like diet and exercise kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like, noticing how my intuition works by paying attention to the actual sensations in the body and how it's feeling. So it's been very much, if it's even possible to have a very deeply even more personal exploration year, I think I did because of human design, like really digging into it and
Mhm.
is this true? Is that true? It's my experience so it can help other people, that kind of thing. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, so have that kind of reflection and noticing what are the things that help support you in staying aligned with your energy? Like for you, what do you think it is? What is something maybe you gleaned from 2024, whether it's a new practice or something you just maybe it's not new, but you dug into more that you feel is kind of a sort of non-negotiable for you that this is
Mhm.
something that you need. Is there anything there?
It wasn't necessarily like a practice per se, but it was a conversation that I had with Presley because like as we talked, he's a generator, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
projector. And I remember having a conversation with him one time where I was like, I basically along the lines of I feel like he expects me to always be doing something because of his generatorness.
Mm-hmm.
And like I just had that I brought that up with him. He's like, I really don't care. He's like, I want you to do what you want to do. He's like, I don't care. It does not matter to me. And he
Mm-hmm.
means that in the nicest
Yeah,
way.
I know what it means. Yeah.
But he's like, it doesn't affect me. Like I'm not expecting you to be
I,
doing all
I
the
think
time.
no less than you,
Yeah.
kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. But that was probably the biggest thing, the biggest breakthrough that I had with human design this year was
Mm-hmm.
kind of just having that conversation and like getting that mental limitation that I had off of myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big one. It's a
Mhm.
big one because I mean, it takes a lot of courage to have those conversations because it's one of those things of like, is this really who I am? And this is really how I feel. It may
Mhm.
not be who I was when we first met because you're living in a certain unawareness of what's good for you. And so it could be scary to be like, do you think I'm lazy?
Mhm.
I change that? I can't change that. Or
Mhm.
I can, but it won't be good for me. So that's takes a lot of courage to do that. And so kudos to you.
Thanks.
Appreciate that. Yeah. So we are. So it's clear that we are going to carry this over into the next episode. So I will, we're going to just leave it here with the types. We're going to come back
Mhm.
in the next episode reflecting on the year as far as through your definition or your undefined centers, open centers.
Mhm.
We'll have some reflection questions there for you, some things to ponder. And as you move into 2025, like I think it really is important to look back and um just kind of, I mean, that's what you do in any kind of scenario or project or at the end of something, a completion is to take stock. I mean,
Mhm.
half of the circuitry in the human design chart is about experience and what you learned from the
Mhm.
experience. The other half is projecting forward and what we can do, and then, or what could happen. But then we're in a stage now, plus it's the time of year, winter, really going inward and pulling things in and closer a little bit instead of going out there and doing things. It's a time to
Mhm.
kind of reflect. And I watched this video. Can always get off on a tangent. I was watching this. Been fascinated lately. I was googling it last night about bears and hibernating, and because it was that National Park Service. No, it
Mhm.
wasn't. It was another video I saw about.
Mhm.
Actually, had video of this bear. Just it was slowly bringing its way into its den. It just kept bringing more
Mhm.
stuff into its before it was going in for its big sleep. In Alaska, bears can hibernate for up to 7 months of the year.
Oh, that sounds glorious.
Here in this part, we have black bears here. It's like 2 to 5 months, maybe. But I was like, why do bears hibernate? And it's like, well, because there's lack of food. It's winter. There's
Mhm.
nothing to eat. And I'm thinking it's fascinating the evolution of things. But when they're in that state, they're not necessarily sleeping the whole time. They are very like what they called it, excessive or extreme uh torpor, I think is the word they call it, which is very, the fact that they do not need to eat or drink, they don't even urinate or anything.
Well, it's also like
Crazy.
that reel you sent me a while ago where it was within hibernation, but it was a mother bear nursing her cubs.
I know they were
Like,
born in
I
hibernation.
know. I was
Crazy.
like, that happens?
Yeah. Yeah. First couple months just hanging out.
Mhm.
But anyway, so yeah.
It's all about nurturing.
Yeah. Reflecting, restoring, reflecting. I said it again.
You were just reflecting yourself.
I was reflecting on reflecting. So when we come back the next time, we're going to look through other aspects of your design. What lessons have you learned
Mhm.
there? What can you do moving forward? And then we are going to come out later on in future episodes with ways to kind of move forward and things you might want to
Mhm.
focus on setting up your year so that when we're doing this next year, you'll be like, oh, I learned so much this year.
Mhm.
So, just a reminder, this episode, like I said, the podcast is now hosted over on Substack and it is free still. You can listen to us and you're probably not listening to us in the Substack app, although Substack does have an app so that if you do want to go over there and get on the newsletter, like I said, it's free. We'll have extended stuff here with the podcast as far as different features and stuff for the time being. All that is still free. And go ahead and subscribe over there. You might see some fun little things, but we will definitely have the questions that we were
Mm.
talking about today, the prompts, some examples so that you can go through that at your own pace. And then also, just a reminder, as we are talking about these things and we're thinking about future, I don't want to say planning, but intention setting and
Mhm.
everything. If you don't already have one, you can go get your human design guidebook on the website, which is the fully customized PDF report that is your design,
Mhm.
everything you need to know, all the nuts and bolts, type, strategy, authority, obviously, but your definition, your profile, your gates, your channels, your incarnation cross, all of that. So
Mhm.
that when you are moving through your next year, I think it's a great resource touch point for you to have that you don't have to
Mhm. Mhm.
keep going to all the different aspects. Go, oh, do I have that gate? What does it mean? You can have it in one spot.
Mhm.
So you can get that. It's in the show notes. You'll find that. And then, of course, it's the opportunity to, as you think about going forward in the new year, if you want some one on one clarity, attention to your chart, you can always work with me in that capacity. And you can also find that in the show notes. And this would also be the time where Haley would sing her little jingle about the incarnation across the week. But we decided to, during these reflective episodes here at the end of the year, we're just going to pause that to the beginning of the year. So we'll start afresh,
Mhm.
even though she's dying to jingle. No, she's not. So, doing away with that, we are just going to put that on pause
Mhm.
until we come back next time. So, we really appreciate you listening, and I hope today got you thinking and maybe looking back at your year and be, I've done some stuff this year. I've learned some things.
Mhm.
I have come so far because if you're like me, always looking forward, you rarely look back. I rarely look back. So give yourself a little pat on the back. Count your wins.
Mhm. Mhm.
Anything else you want to say, Haley?
Mm, nope.
Okay. That sounds good. Well, we'll leave it there for now. Until next time, we really appreciate you being here. And bye for now.
Bye.
Bye. You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.